The Master of Art lecture and art form presented by the Pottstown Area Artists Guild on Tuesday, November 16, 2021 featured Amanda Condict at the Hill School Boyer Gallery. Amanda spoke about the many careers and sidelines of her art journey. Her art journey has led her through many careers and sidelines, from fashion illustrator to a graphic design entrepreneur, to a mom supporting her kids' activities with art, to an art educator, to conducting art parties. She says, "I am very content to have proved my father wrong when he told me 50 years ago that even though he believed I was talented, he worried I couldn't make a living with my art. I am here to tell you that there is always a way to make a living with your art, although sometimes in ways you might never expect." The artwork she creates now speaks of her everyday contact with people and positions them as central, as subjects in their own lives, as well as subjects in her artwork. Her paintings, photographs, prints and drawings are about people, their relationships with the things they own, their relationships with each other, and their relationships with her.
My art career working in box shop advertising. When I went to Pottstown for 1 year and I thought I knew better. If we went to 2 deep in the degree, I'm going to be an artist. So I quit. And I figured I'm going to get a job as a fashion illustrator. I always wanted to be a fashion illustrator. I liked to draw pretty women. I thought I was pretty good at it. But I knew nothing at all about how the fashion world works. So what I did was I got a portfolio of all my work together, and I walked around, or drove, but then went to all of the local stores in the Reading area, knocked on their door, got an interview, thinking I was going to get a job doing, drawing their clothing. I had no clue that most of them were chain stores, and all of the advertising they did came from their corporate headquarters in New York or San Francisco. So there was no illustrators working in any of those stores. So it was a very wake-up call for me to walk around and be, rejected from all these stores, because no one had any jobs for me. Rostock was one of the stores that I went to. After about 2 months of looking for a job and not getting anything, Rostock called me back and said, "Well, we see on your resume that you used to be a cashier in a grocery store when you were in high school. We need a cashier. Can you take the job?" Well, at that point, I was desperate. I needed a job, so I said, "Yeah." So I started out as a cashier at Rostock. The head cashier was a really nice guy, kind of the grandfatherly type, And after I was there about 6 or 8 months cashiering, there was a person in advertising who was on her last threat. She was a drinker and she didn't show up for work on time, and she was finally being fired. So he called me down one day. I thought, "Oh, I'm in trouble. I did something wrong." But no, he called me down to tell me, "There's going to be an opening in advertising. Go in there and apply. You can take off now. Just go in there and tell me what's the job." So I did, and they hired me on a conditional basis. Okay, we'll give you a try. The first thing they did was they gave me a children's dress and said, "Go home tonight, draw this as an ad, bring it back. We'll see if we like it." So of course I did that for free, didn't get paid for it. Brought it back. They liked it. They ran it in the newspaper on a Sunday. I was thrilled, here's my drawing in the newspaper. But they still didn't tell me I was hired. So then they said, "Okay, we'll try you out. We'll test you. We'll put you in there and see if you work out." So I started working in advertising. At the same salary that cashiers were getting, which back then was minimum wage, and it was $1.50 an hour, I was there maybe 6 months in advertising, working for minimum wage, same as the cashiers, when the head cashier again called me into his office and said, "You're doing a good job. They like you. Did they give you a raise yet?" I said, "No, I just asked for a raise." So I did, and I got $1.75 an hour. So anyway, I worked at Pottstown maybe about 5 years. In the time that I worked there, when I started, they had 3 stores, east, west, and north. By the time I left there, they were up to 9 stores. So as the company got bigger, they needed to hire more people, they did more ads. And basically, I don't know if you remember back in those days, Pottstown owned the Sunday paper. Half the paper was Pottstown ads, Because they got more and more Pottstown, they needed more and more work, so we were hiring. When I first started there, I was one of only 3 artists. We were up to 6 artists, and when they hired the 7th artist, who I was his boss, but now I'm scheduling the ads and telling who to do what things when. And I just inadvertently found out that he was making 50 cents an hour more than me. And so what? So of course I went into, at the time I was also you're talking the mid-70s, I was a super feminist, So I talked to my dad first. He goes, oh, no, just because you're, a woman doesn't mean you shouldn't get paid as much as him. So I went in and talked to him. And our boss was out Boston. We didn't have an intermediary. So I went in and talked to him and argued with him. Now, we're talking mid-70s here. He gave me all kinds of arguments like, well, you're married, right? And your husband has a job, so you don't need more money, do you? I finally got so angry that I left. I quit. I walked out that day. That's it. I'm done. I don't need this effing job. How's that going to happen, Of course, now, once again, I had no job. No job, no money. So at that point, I started, I think I started, well, back to my waitressing. Waitressing is always a good thing to do when you're still young and strong enough, So I was waitressing, and a friend of mine owned Beef and Beer, and he said, I could use a waitress. So I'm out there on Friday nights, and there's that mass of people, And then once again, someone wasn't showing up for work as a bartender, and he goes, why don't you go behind the bar? I'll train you. So I became a bartender there. And then he took me from weekend nights, which were crazy busy, to during the daytime. And during the daytime, they had go-go girls dancing on the bar, so all the businessmen would come in. So I met a lot of businessmen, people that had businesses and stuff, and they get to chat me up during lunch hour and stuff. And one of them said, oh, well, I work for an advertising agency. Sometimes we need help with freelance work. Can you do that? I said, well, sure. So I started picking up contacts that way, getting a little bit of work here, a little bit of work there. Want to skip to this? Oh, this is one of my best dads from Pottstown, from back in the 70s. You can go to the next one.
Before we go on,
Yeah.
where do you get the ideas?
Tall, long-legged, the California beach girl look, and the feet behind them were actually the Hang Ten logo. Because, they're on the surfboard, I guess the toes. Right,
Yes, oh, no.
Yeah. All right, I'm sorry, I got taken off track of my. So anyway, after getting a couple of freelance jobs and making some contacts in the business community and vetting, because I was tending bar at a go-go joint, I ran into a businessman who was starting, he didn't start the magazine. A group of a teacher and a writer and somebody else started a local magazine, much like Berks County Living today. It was called County Life. Well, first it was called County Magazine, then it became County Life Magazine. And they had just started it, and it was just getting off the ground. And I guess the teacher who was doing the layout had to go back to school. He had a year's sabbatical, but then he had to go back to school. And they needed someone to actually do the mechanical art, to lay it out. And they said, can you do that? Well, I have never done that. Last time we drew the ads, sent them to the paper, and the paper put together. But of course I said, yeah, I can do that. So they hired me. It was a very part-time job. It was like 1 week a month in the beginning. But it grew and grew. As the magazine grew, it became more and more hours. I eventually became the art director of the magazine. I was there for 5 years. But the magazine had a hard time getting enough advertisers, and eventually they folded. And so I was able to start unemployment. By the time they folded, though, I had made a lot more contacts, because having worked in the magazine and becoming the art director, many people that would advertise in the magazine did not have their own ad agency, so they asked us at the magazine if we would create the ads for them. And so I picked up some freelance jobs that way, and that made a lot of contacts that way. So by the time the magazine folded, I had a couple months of unemployment to kind of keep me going, and by then I was able to cobble together a business. And so I started doing freelance work. So it's pretty much a little bit of everything. I never said no. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. What is that? Yes. I never said no. And I think that's a good attitude to have, especially when you're starting out, because you get to meet people and do things that you never thought you were capable of and never thought you could. And one thing leads to another, And one thing I always found so interesting about this kind of work is that, I'm sort of like a trivia person, I guess the ADD and the being scattered. I get so interested in, how does this work? Look, look at that. Look at how they do that, And when you work in this kind of business, everything you do, you have to understand how the process works so you can illustrate it. So, let me see what there is now. That store some kind of liquid in fields on the side of the road. Well, how do you think they don't rust? Because they're set in the ground. They don't rust because they have some kind of electromagnetic charge that runs through them. So I had to do the illustrations showing how this works, you know. Another time it was, this was for air products in Allentown. What do landfills do with all of the gases that are created? When they go underground to a system, some university actually, their entire electric is run by the gases coming, the methane gases coming out of the landfill in New York, you know. So I just found it was so amazing to learn those kind of things and then to figure out how to show them or draw them or illustrate them. So the lady there with the dog, it was a lady who was designing and producing doggy clothing, and she entered to be at a runway show in New York City during Pet Fashion Week. And she had to, well actually I helped design it, she had to take one of her clothing for a dog and design a dress for a human to go with it. And my husband, who's a pattern maker, he created the pattern and made the dress. And then that was the drawing to send in to enter the show, and she got in, and so she had, you know, regular professional model walking down the runway with a little dog. Go ahead. The Red Umbrella was a company that I did a lot of work for. They did art products for kids mostly, and that was selling that translucent poster carrier that they could carry their work back and forth to school, you know. Land Above the Trees. I used to do a lot of work for a local film company who sells educational films. They rent and sell films. And I designed a lot of their DVD covers and their brochures and their postcards. At the bottom, the T-shirts. I used to do a lot of T-shirt graphics for Dolphin out. If you ever familiar with Dolphin, the company that did mainly athletic running shorts and swimwear and stuff for teens. And they went into a thing one year where they were, whatever print they had for the shorts, they wanted a pattern on the T-shirt to match it, so they could sell it as a set. So I designed a lot of those for them. At the bottom is some kind of complicated machinery that some factory that I'm not even sure if I remember exactly what they did, but they rolled out some kind of product. That on the upper right, the little carousel horse I did, it was a sample I did for Dover. They wanted some stickers of carousel horses, but they rejected it. That's one that was a no-go, but I don't know why, they didn't tell me why. Con Air, that machine was a company that, but that was actually a project I got involved in that I ended up withdrawing from because it was just too much. So a lady put together this huge team of artists for a company in Pittsburgh, and she actually would fly us out there to go around and look at the machinery and take pictures and illustrate them. But she didn't do a very good job of organizing it, and we never had the information we needed to do the job right. And I finally ended up saying, you know what, I can't. I did pull out of that one. So yeah, there were some that I feel like it was my fault. There's Randy Rick. Maybe everyone knows Randy Rick. He used to be a beach dresser in Reading. He did when he had a school. I did a brochure for his beauty school. I did the logo for Bistro 614, which is I think they're still. It's no longer Joe's restaurant used to. The guy that had Joe's used to. He opened it, but I think someone else owns it now. So that's just a sort of a sampling of it. You can see the different kinds of things that I did. I don't know. That's just the way life works, I guess. When my kids were little, we moved out to the Brandywine Heights School District, and a friend of mine had a son who was my son's age, and we just didn't think they had a good art program, and her and I both being artists, we felt like, what can we do? So we started this art program at the elementary school. It was just a volunteer thing. We didn't make any money doing it, but we used to take the students and to different artist studios. They did little one-day workshops, and then we had an art show at the end of the year. We did it like 2 years, and then one of the parents was a secretary for a lawyer, and she goes, you know, if you're going to do this, you need liability insurance. The parents going to sue you. And we said, you know what, we're out of here. We're done with it. So that was the end of that. But it was great. The parents and the kids loved it while we did it, you know. So this was, as I used to work in my company, like my freelance became more and more. I needed help, so I started hiring people. At first, I would just hire freelancers to help me out. I realized I couldn't just use my name because other people were working for me, so I started calling myself Condict and Company. I got bigger and bigger, as businesses do. As the economy got better, I did more and more stuff. I had good clients. Like, I used to do a lot of work for GK Elite, who does all of the, who does a lot of the gymnastic costumes for a lot of the, Olympic teams. Paint Today was another, that art supply company. Shimmer and Scent was for Reading China and Glass. They were doing a line of their own products. I did all the packaging for it. The baby carriage, Euro Baby, was a kind of a new startup that was starting out with some real well-designed baby stuff. Basque Medical was a guy in the medical industry, but he did like I don't know what, insertion devices, like to
IV?
yeah, for IVs and stuff. And I did a lot of work for him. That was like a folder for him to put all his information in. So, you know, I got more and more professional. I hired more and more people. You want to go to the next one? I got to do some really interesting stuff. This is an inventor. He's pretty close to me. And he's always come up with these wacky ideas. I don't think he ever made any money on them, but he was always very generous and paid me to produce things for him. So this was a placemat that he was trying to sell to some of the restaurants around the NASCAR races that he would sell it to the restaurant, and they had little game pieces and the rules of the game, and so I actually came up with the artwork for that. It was black and white, so it could be printed cheaply. I don't know that it ever took off or anything, but always fun projects, always interesting, and I always enjoyed doing stuff like that. As my company grew, I got I've done work for Randy Rick for many, many years, from the time he had his own company, and then he was designing textbooks for the beauty industry, and he was bought out by Empire Beauty Schools up in Pottstown, and they started a company called Certified Learning in Cosmetology, and they said that there really was only one major player, I forget the name of the company, in the cosmetology education that did textbooks, and the textbooks were very, very boring, kind of like science textbooks. You know, a lot of words, not many pictures. And he said, you know, these are kids, they're artists. They're going into an art-related field. They have to be jazzy and beautiful and lots of colorful pictures and exciting and interesting. And so he started coming up with ideas for these textbooks and had me design them and illustrate them. And it just took off like wildfire. I mean, well, Empire dumped a ton of money into it, like millions. And as they grew, my company grew to the point where I ended up with like 10 people working for me. Because these were like really incredibly intense projects. You know, they just had so much illustration and so much, just so much. We illustrated them, we designed them, we did the photography. I had a full-time photographer on staff. It was very, very exciting and very fun. We got to go to the big shows with them to launch things, but it was very, very intense, very intense. And then I was doing work for them up until the recession of 2007, and they had literally, I mean, they had dumped literally millions into this project, and it was going okay. They had like a bunch of their own beauty schools that used the books, and they were selling them to other schools. But I think when the recession hit, they had to save some money, so they actually asked me, they were going to take all the work in-house to finish up the books. I think out of a series of 7, I think I did 5 of the books, and like 4 of the teacher's guides. So they actually hired me to train their staff how to finish them up. So when I lost that account, I couldn't support 10 people, so I had to lay off a lot of people, and I still did work, but it wasn't, a lot of my customers were fairly smaller businesses, like medium to small businesses, and a number of them didn't survive the recession. So as my customers started kicking the bucket, you know, I kept laying people off until the point where it was just me again, which was kind of nice. By then I was teaching at Albright College. I think we can flip through here a little more. As a photographer up in Allentown, and it'd be a whole day affair, and they'd be actual, for real skaters and stuff would come in, and they'd, you know, change the outfit. The woman that was marketing for the company, she, like, so I'd be there helping to direct it, and I'd say, well, comb her hair. She goes, oh, you can fix it in Photoshop, right? I said, look, I can fix anything in Photoshop, but how much money do you have? Mm-hmm. It's way cheaper to go over there with a comb and comb her hair than for me to, like, go fix it in Photoshop after. Okay, I'll go comb her hair, you know. So, yeah, at one point I said to myself, you know, that would be kind of fun to, like, and I've always liked dolls, like dolls and face, yeah, they're people, they're little people, dolls, yeah, puppets, you know. So at one point I said to myself, what would happen if I, like, just stuck Barbie in a picture? Mm-hmm. And these are so much fun to do because people will look at them and then they'll go, no, wait a minute, how'd you get that life-size Barbie? It wasn't a life. So it's a creative challenge, like for me to, I find a photograph that I think could use the addition of a Barbie or a Ken or somebody, and then I take the actual. I have a big box full of Barbies and Kens and other kind of dolls in my studio and outfits for them. You know, and I take them out to find the right lighting, like the lighting coming from the left. I got to put the lighting from the left. If it's out of focus, I have to shoot it out of focus. And I shoot it to try to match the lighting in the thing, and then I stick it into the picture. And so that's if they're trying to the real person or not, you know. So it's fun. And then I had a show one time where I had these in the show. The one in the bottom, though, there's no Barbies or Kens in there. That was a weekend that my brothers and I were all up visiting with my dad at his cabin. And we just all took tons of pictures. And, you know, I come from a very large family. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. And it just occurred to me, it's a very large family. It should be even larger. So I kept taking pictures of my brothers and throwing them on there. So I think they each appeared there like 6 times. I don't know how to teach. Now I don't want to do it. She said, come on, I'm making an evening class, so it doesn't mess up your business. And she bugged me until finally I agreed to do it, and I hated it. I wasn't very good at it. You know, I had the impression that when you're teaching, you just like throw out this information, the students will grab it. No. You have to be an entertainer, and you have to make it interesting enough and exciting. You have to engage them, and so like anything else that I do. After the first semester, I was terrible. I said, I'm not doing that again. She goes, oh, but next semester I need someone to teach marketing. No, all right, okay. I thought, okay, I can do this better. So every semester that I said that, I won't do it again. She kept saying, yeah, you will, come on. And I did, and I got better and better at it. I learned what it took to make the students want the information that I had. A lot of visuals, a lot of, engaging them, that sort of thing. And in the end, I started really, really enjoying it. But I was teaching at Albright until I, didn't need the money from the business as much. And, I reached a point where, I was a big women's liver back in the 70s. But, it always stayed with me because I'm a woman. And always and that whole kind of idea of like, here I am working in advertising, using my Photoshop skills to make models skinnier and get rid of their wrinkles and do all that kind of stuff. And how is that real? That doesn't, like, am I promoting like a false ideal of beauty, So at one point I said, when I do all this kind of graphic design work for places, I don't get paid for it. It's a volunteer thing, right? So I can do it. I have the skills. I have the computer software. So at one point I said, I no longer want to use my graphic design skills for evil. I only want to use it for good, which means I work for nonprofits for free. But, it's satisfying to be able to help, somebody grow or whatever, so. And I teach there sometimes. I haven't since the pandemic, but I've been teaching some classes there too. So it's pretty close to my house. There's a room there in their studio, and I know all the other fashion professors kept coming in and saying, and when is the wedding? And when is the wedding? I'm going to do it. Well, in the end, because all that sewing on the bodice is all hand stitching that lace down. So in the end, I recruited everyone. Kathy came in and helped me. I think there's like 175 hours of hand stitching on that bodice to get that lace on there. And her aunt, my daughter's aunt, actually sewed the heart on because it was her brother that, And so I left the room so she could cry and do it. And it was great. Everyone.
Did they ever?
The postcard that they did, I thought it was great. Yeah, I like all the different artworks there. But yeah, so the opening is December 3rd. That's why I've been like in a framing frenzy. I can't believe that I said I would do this talk at the same time that I wasn't thinking at the time. But anyway, yeah, so that's like my crowning achievement now. I'm going to actually get the Condict Award and have it. And so I have to fill the whole gallery out at Yoakum. And it's a pretty good-sized gallery. So yeah, I've been going into my studio and pulling it. She said, you can bring old work, you can bring whatever. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
You can bring this whole table.
Well, it's not the advertising work, but yeah, I've been trying to find everything else I could find. So.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you.
So is that open to the public?
Yes, yes. Now, it always was like a fundraiser for Yoakum, and they used to have it somewhere else, but not at the gallery, and it was like $50. With the fancy hors d'oeuvres and stuff. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure, did you call Kathy?
I didn't call.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is just open, like she said, because of the pandemic, people are reluctant to come out. So she said, I think we're just going to do it during your opening. So I'm pretty sure there's no charge. I know it's open to the public, And I think she asked on the postcard, I don't see it there, I think she asked to make, to reply, to,
Either
Susan
call
Brown.
or email.
Yeah,
You can
to
email
yeah,
too.
at the Institute. But I don't, as far as I know, they're not charging, it's just like a regular opening.
This is erratic, right? Isn't it?
It says
what's
Sinking Spring, it's in, yeah.
Because I've been there before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be in my mission. Is there anything else I can, answer for you, or?
Well, why don't we give her a nice